All right, so then there were three. As we check to see, I mean, it could be James is stuck in traffic around Pirano, which I know actually my uncle, my wife's uncle and his wife have a place in Pirano, and I believe that is where you can fish for piranha. But how you guys feeling? I mean, I think it's almost worse to just like be on for 3 hours and then sleep for 2 hours and then be on. That would bother me more than what I'm doing.
Yeah, the last segment, which was fun with the nap guys and Mike, I logged off of that, did a couple things, set my alarm and slept for 90 minutes. And now I'm going to go to bed again here in a bit and sleep for maybe a little bit longer this time. I don't think I'll have to be back for about 4 or 5 hours.
I tried.
You're next on in the 4 p.m. UK hour, I believe, and it's 10 a.m. now. So you got the opportunity to sleep, although you'll be sleeping through some really, really good guests, though.
Yeah, I'll see where it falls. And I've been up since yesterday morning about 6 a.m. my time, and it's 4 a.m. our time now. So I'm not sure how long I'll make it.
Well, obviously you're being a massive help. Both of you are, as is Eoin, as is not Andy. We are now at with our latest donation from Henry Seal. We are now at $4,075 raised for the Pod-A-Thon. We're halfway through. I'm under no illusions that we're going to double that in the second half because obviously people have donated and it's always going to be heavier in the first half. But I'm under a massive illusion that I would like to smash last year's record of $5,000. I think we can do it. We all work together.
Achievable.
And it's eminently achievable because we still have in front of us drawings for Ruth Beck Art, Legends Choice Retro Shirt. This is the same prize that was the grand prize in the Orlando and Baltimore raffles, which is your choice of Lee Dixon, Kevin Campbell, Perry Groves, Alan Smith, or Kaya Kainak signed shirt. And you can choose what they say on it, and it's a retro shirt from the Arsenal shop. That's coming up. More Ruth Beck Art. A non-personalized new Arsenal kit, a personalized new Arsenal kit, thanks to Jerry Riedel I believe he's from New Jersey or New York. An Alan Smith signed shirt, a Perry Grove signed shirt, 2 more kits, and then the Saka ESR and Tomiyasu signed shirt. So we've got really, really, really good ones coming up in those final 10 hours or so. And if you haven't already, this is the time to get in. At goonersvcancer.com, as you can see on the bottom scroll. So Daniel Bailey, it's great to hear from you. Keep up the great work, guys. I've been popping in and out throughout the stream. I did witness your awkward encounter with Lee Dixon last night. It wasn't awkward, it was electric. And this is what he's talking about here, I believe.
Triple high five.
The triple high 10, as a matter of fact. It just so happens that my hand appears to be high-fiving Andy's. That is not, in fact, what it was doing at the time. But yeah, Lee at least had the presence of mind of having his down hand away from his body instead of going directly into it. But yeah, that was an awkward and wonderful moment. So
here's a good one. We need a koozie signed by Magic Mike.
A koozie. I love how it's spelled like the basketball player.
Yeah, I thought
koozie. That's like the beer holder, right? I received an Arsenal koozie while I was on my trip, and it came in quite handy because it was hot AF at the block party outside of the stadium in Orlando. But
you can never have too many. We probably got 100 in the house, but I'll see if we've got any red ones laying around. I can have the old lady make us a few and maybe send some out.
Let me see if I have any. Well, while we wait and watch the bottom and let me know immediately if James shows up because I've got a different screen on. See if we
have know. And once James is here, I'll take off. So we'll make a quick transition / upgrade.
Hi, James.
I'm trying to see of any interesting videos from Orlando to play because I have not been able to kind of make an entire thing of it. So what do we have here? Let's just play one randomly and see what happens. From Orlando. TGP on tour. We are now at Camping World Stadium. We are in the fan zone outside. And I say we, I just mean me, and thousands of Gooners. Cold beer. It's hot AF. It's about 40 degrees. I know you guys have had that over in London, but look, it's hot. It's hot AF. I got cold beers. I got to drink some more. And we're going to be talking to some people in the house about Arsenal and Chelsea and about how much better Arsenal are than Chelsea, which will be demonstrated tonight and then 4 more times throughout the season. So we're in the house, except I keep saying that, but there's no house here. We are covering the Florida Cup, and we're bringing it to you on your #1 podcast, the Gooners Pod. Now you can see why I was I made the smart decision to not insert myself into the actual like media room or anything like that. Do you think that was the prudent decision at the time?
For once in your life, I think you went the smart route on this one and showed a little bit of discretion, which I'm sure they probably appreciated as well.
Yeah,
and
it was.
Every time I see the videos, I'm more and more gutted that I couldn't go to any of the games. I know it's been kind of a common theme of the podcast. I know Elliot from Arsenal Vision already had plans when we talked to Scott.
Promo. Yeah,
I was the same. I had concert tickets out of state with the in-laws. We make this trip up there. We do the whole thing. And then the day of, just to top it off of not being able to go to Arsenal, there's severe storms in the area and the authorities cancel the concert and don't let it move forward. So we just didn't get to go.
I didn't know that. That's
insult to
awful.
injury.
Yeah. So, I mean, they rescheduled it for like 3 weeks from now. So we'll probably still do it. But yeah, that was the only reason I couldn't come watch Arsenal and hang out for the week. And then it ended up not even going off.
You should have just hopped on a plane. I had an Airbnb with an extra bedroom you could have stayed in.
No, I would have loved to, but it just, the way it fell just didn't work, unfortunately. But hopefully next time they're in the States, I can make it happen. And hopefully they're not in Baltimore, but you know,
and
we'll
speaking
see.
of Airbnbs, and all right, so yeah, James will not only be well, he might be able to stay longer, which could get interesting considering the guests that are on after him. But here's another video of a different James. TGP on tour. This is game day. I've got the one and only Gunner blog, James McNicholas, with us yet again. How are you today?
I'm very good. We must stop meeting like this, Mike. People will start to talk.
How should we be meeting? I mean, what would be your preferred way?
Just less frequently.
Less, yeah. Frequently. I was going to say less. What do you think about this scene? This is outside the Harp and Celt right now. Inside, there's about another 4,721 people.
Yeah, and about 4,721 degrees as well. I arrived here late, just stopping by, and I literally couldn't get in to the pub because effectively it's barricaded with human bodies.
Did they not allow you to put up the card that says, "Do you know who I am"?
I didn't do that. I didn't do it, but I was tempted. But to be honest, I'm in the shade out here. It's lovely, and it is amazing to see all these Arsenal fans. I mean, yeah, we were here last night having I'll call it a quiet drink, and I was promised, listen, tomorrow it's going to be crazy, it's going to be busy, it's going to be full, and I did believe it, but the proof was in the pudding. It is rammed here, and just like Baltimore, great atmosphere, so many fans who so excited for today's game and for Saturday's game as well. A lot of people here for the whole, 5 days, our whole week. So yeah, it's a real buzz to be part of it.
Yeah, and you know, Orlando City tonight. How much scouting have you done of the opponent tonight to be able to, you know, to portray the reality of the competition back to your listeners at home?
Hang on.
This is the 91st time in the last hour we've heard that.
We do hate Tottenham, so there you go.
And that's the first time I've heard that part.
Yeah, shame to have that tacked on the end. You can't win them all. But what do I know about Orlando? Nothing.
What do you think of Orlando? Shit.
No. Orlando's much nicer than I was told it would be by lots of American people. Orlando City, Pato plays for them, right?
He does, and you know, he's 49 years old.
Yeah.
And he still got it.
I said, how's he doing? To a guy from Orlando who was telling me about the team. I said, how's Pato getting on? They were like, oh, yeah, he plays really well when he's not injured. And I was like, that sounds about right.
Well 4 out of his I don't remember that interview. I got to be honest with you, but I want to cut it short because James is with us. We've gone from some people go from strength to strength. We go from James to James, which is also from strength to strength. James, you are a fashion plate today. Let's see this. What do we got there?
It's
full cohort.
Wow.
Oh my God!
Oh man,
you are. I mean. Let's just say that the first time I ever met you was the first time I realized that I didn't have to wear like fancy clothes into the press box. That was in Denver. But you've just gone 180 degrees and look at that. I mean, I could not pull that off. It would just be one big circle. But
I mean, so I turned up in Denver. So obviously this was the day of the weekend U statement on Arsenal's previous preseason tour back in 2019, and I and many others, the team were in LA, obviously booked to play Colorado Rapids, Stan Kroenke's other team in Denver, but kind of everyone was like, well, we'll just go to Denver for the night, come back, and it was a, therefore you're like, right, I'll just go in what I've got. So I turn up in shorts and a polo shirt, to discover that the sort of long-mooted interview with Josh Kroenke, which everyone was sort of expecting to happen later on the tour, would be happening there and then. And I'm like, right, okay, so I'm going to meet the most senior person at Arsenal, except for the absent father. And I'm going to be doing that in my shorts.
The one time I figured this is my first experience. I'm going to overdo it rather than underdo it. Andy couldn't have cared less. He was wearing shorts. I was like he calls it a 3-piece suit, but it was just, I was wearing slacks and a collared polo. And I was glad that I would, you dress like the job you want.
Exactly. I've never interviewed Josh since.
That makes 2 of us.
I will say that Jared has too much class for this conversation because he's never not dressed spiffy. So Jared, I'm gonna get you your way out for your next 3-hour nap before you come back to us. So
get it in while I can and give the podcast the ultimate upgrade. Not only am I leaving, but now you have James to fill that slot. So I'm sure everybody will be really happy about that transition.
Jared, thanks, man. Appreciate you.
We're never happy when
you
leave.
in a few hours.
We're out of here.
Yeah, we will see you soon.
All right, man.
Yeah, somebody who is not very spiffy. Fun fact about myself: I wear pants about 99%, shorts about 99% of the year. Rain or shine, it's about 20 degrees. Mike, I'll let you do the math to translate. 68, and I'm wearing shorts for the most part, and I have zero problem. Yeah, absolutely. And I start work at the crack of dawn. Actually, I just saw the clock, Mike. Now I've been awake for 24 hours myself now because I tried to take a quick nap between segments and I couldn't go to sleep. So I leave work roughly around this time, and it's freezing, and sometimes there's ice on my windshield, and I'm just in shorts and a t-shirt because I don't even wear hoodies, so I'll be out there with shorts and a t-shirt, and I have everybody looking at me thinking I'm either crazy or just stupid. A little bit of both, baby James.
Ever since, well, I mean, so obviously, in press box now, you still have sort of people who will turn up in their full suit, and I'm a bit look, 99% of the time, 99% of the time, we're just sat here watching a football match, and we'll go into a press conference. So, I'm now very much the work shirt guy, t-shirt underneath, nothing too outrageous. Certainly, if I know that I'm meeting Josh Kroenke, I might smarten up a little bit. But I mean, it's 2022, lads. I think you're better wearing shorts than.
It's like Howard Stern's mother used to always tell him, you dress like you're going to be meeting the governor, because you never know who you're going to meet. And I'm like, no, because if I dress like I'm meeting the governor, then when the governor shows up, I'm going to be slobby, sweating all over the place. I need to dress for comfort, and
yes,
I think that's how it's going. So,
especially now, I work from home Sorry, I know you want to talk about actual football, I'm sure, but I work from home.
No, I want to talk about the Amalfi Coast, but go ahead.
I mean, I work from home every day. I'm not at a game nowadays, or so my whole attitude to work has become very like, is this the most comfortable thing I can wear?
Smart man.
Yeah.
You know what the most comfortable thing you can wear is which have been coming in very handy on the 27-hour podcast. But
a little diaper action.
But yeah, let's not go there. What brings you to what I must say is a very good internet connection in the Amalfi Coast of Italy?
It is surprisingly good.
All over the place.
I was very clear when that fixture list dropped and it was Selhurst Park away for the opening day of the season. I don't want to watch that. I'm not doing that to myself. I'm not living through the agony that will come of Patrick Vieira's Crystal Palace running riot against Arsenal. Absolutely not in my interest. So I was like, get me out of the country. Somehow I've managed to miss most of the opening weekend of the season. I might do a game on Sunday. And I missed transfer deadline day this year. It's my partner's 30th, which is just phenomenal. I'm over the moon. All these hard, important aspects of the season, I'm like, nah, not going to be around for that. Sorry.
Solid pass on that.
Yeah, that's a hard pass. But that's great. I mean, Charles Watts on a 2-week holiday couldn't join us. James Benge did. So there's like a repositioning now that's happening in the hierarchy of my love for Arsenal journalists. But so how is life at CBS? I think we almost ran into each other in, where was it? Was it in Manchester?
Oh yes, for the quarterfinals.
We didn't end up being able to consummate that either on the other leg, I don't think, in Madrid. But I
wasn't in Madrid, frustratingly. But I mean, that home leg was just like, it's not the sort where you can like meet when that game's happening. You sort of do think like, yeah, I'm not going to be in a position to be meeting anyone for anything afterwards until about 4 a.m.
Which would have been fun.
Would have been fun.
That game was,
my train.
That game was not particularly fun, but the return legs, my God, I mean, the 2 games in Madrid that my son and I saw, which were the final 2 games of our travels, were just 2 of the best in very different ways. The Chelsea return match at Real Madrid with the Benzema last minute winner, or close to last minute winner. It was an injury time or a extra time. I mean, and then the slugfest at Atletico with Man City. Fun stuff. But
I quite enjoy watching City, because I think kind of, even with an Arsenal view on things, I think they're so far out in front that it's almost like I wouldn't think of City and even Liverpool as Arsenal's rivals at the moment. And I'm sure a day will sort of come when, you do closely watch what they're doing because, you want Arteta's team to match it, and you look forward to the days they drop points. But like, based on where Arsenal are right now, and that's it. So, I don't really feel that rivalry too strongly. Also, they've just given Arsenal 2 of Arsenal's best players. So I think, a round of drinks is due to Pep Guardiola when he eventually makes it to the Emirates. If Gabriel Jesus is good.
It's bizarro 2009 right now, where, instead of all of our guys going that way, they're coming back this way.
James, how was that process for you to, I'm going to say, get used to that mentality? Because I know, I'm going to say, accepting that golfing class, it's been a longer journey for some. But, I, at a lack of a better word, accepted it a few years ago, and I found it to be muy enjoyable for me to watch Arsenal. More enjoyable to be able to watch the Arsenal, knowing that there's that golf, and I'm just kind of like, I'm going to say, accepting of the landscape of football. So did you have a rough time with it, or did you just kind of like ease into comfort, so to say, that, there's powers outside of football that might be manipulating how teams get built?
I think the second season with Pep, the one where they won the title for the first time, I think it became quite obvious then that, look, Arsenal aren't catching this team. They just don't have the money. I think that, so with Liverpool, I would differentiate between the two. With Liverpool, I think what's frustrating there is they're kind of the model club for Arsenal. Like, they've not really bent any rules. They've sold exceptionally well. I think with City, though, you just look at it and you say, well, there's no way on earth Arsenal can compete with that, except, either tighter regulation from UEFA and from the Premier League, which I'm not optimistic will ever happen, certainly in the short term, or, being bought out by someone that requires Arsenal supporters to do even more moral gymnastics. I think, when we talk about the Cronkies, there are a lot of reasons to not like them as owners, both in terms of what they serve up for Arsenal. And I don't think that, no billionaire can be considered, ethically clean. And I don't like the fact that they donated to the Trump campaign. But there's a big difference between that and sports washing for a repressive regime. Well, maybe you don't think there is. Maybe, you think that the Cronkies kind of do some of that as well. But
I know Mike thinks that's going on. Mike has too much dirt on Manchester City to ever love them. But that's a really interesting point, because I've said that in the past as well. That the Manchester City, Chelsea winning leagues, my whole mentality was like, they bought it. But when Liverpool managed to convert the Coutinho money and purchase, their goalkeeper, Virgil van Dijk, et cetera, and on top of that, smart buys like
you should
Alexander.
Respect when it's done the right way, but it just killed me that they legitimately won a league after 30 years.
I think that's what hurts the most, right? Because
I'm numb to the Man City thing. I'm fine finishing second behind Man City just because it doesn't really mean anything.
Exactly. So they managed to do it in a manner in which Arsenal could potentially do it if they continue to run the way they are. So it's just a completely different type of pain, so to say. Like you said, because it's very easy to dismiss Chelsea achievements, Manchester City achievements because of that. But you see Liverpool, that as an Arsenal fan, that one stung a little when I saw them win.
Yeah, no, that I was the same way. I was perfectly happy. They could win as many, because they'd already won some. They could win as many European championships as they could, but don't let Tottenham win their first. And don't, and the only thing left with Man City is that feeling of saying, don't let Man City win the Champions League now. I would have rather Chelsea won the I was happy they won the final, given the choices, rather than Man City, only because Chelsea wins it again, or Man City finally gets everything that they finally wanted. The leagues are just kind of dime a dozen at this point for Man City.
Gives you a good laugh watching teams like PSG and Manchester City continue to not be able to raise the Champions League trophy. It's kind of, puts a smile on my face, so to say, to be honest. Yeah, so I get what you're saying, Mikey.
I have much more of an issue with PSG, because my issue, I'm with Mike there, that City increasingly just washes over me. With PSG, what drives me mad is that they're so bad at it. Like, how can you be so
ridiculously bad?
They lose in the most they're doing the belly flop off of the high dive. It's good for entertainment value, because they're not used to having to try hard in the vast majority of their games, and then it really just comes back to haunt them in the when it counts the most in the Premier in the Champions League.
They operate. Go ahead, James.
A PSG writer, resident, fan, every year about sort of January time, he starts convincing himself it's this year. It's never going to be this year. I love it.
I'm shocked that although with players like this, you don't really know that there's much of an alternative, but that they actually were able to get Mbappe to recommit there. But
it's like presidential decree, isn't it?
It's a boatload of money and a lot of pressure, apparently. But watching PSG is like literally watching every kid's FIFA career mode, the manner in which they buy players.
Did Gazidis try to get him for AC Milan, Mikey? Since you're so plugged in with you're a young AC Milan fan.
Yeah, I'm in the know when it comes to Milan, and I could confirm.
that there was no attempt made.
There was no attempt. No.
We're going to bring in now
we
because
don't do that in Italy, wage structure wise. Sorry, go ahead.
the one thing about the Gooners podcast and Gooners versus Cancer, please go to goonersvcancer.com, is we give you value for entertainment. We are not the type of podcast to simply stop with one James B. One James B is great. I love this James B, but we're going to bring you two James Bs because that is how we roll. A duck-breaking appearance for James Bayless, James B. You may recognize him from videos from a fan channel that is becoming somewhat popular. But James, I've just met you in Orlando and find you to be a charming, lovely guy. James B, have you met before?
Not as far as I'm aware.
No, not in person. I've probably replied to a few of your tweets before, but yeah, pleasure to meet you.
Good to meet you.
And thanks for joining us this morning, Mike, James. So we're while we have this crossover, and James, I just didn't want to kind of usher you out of here 10 minutes after getting in, because obviously I enjoy your company. So maybe we'll do about a 10-minute crossover, and then we'll spend some more time with James. After talking to James, we'll talk to some James. Then I'll probably put up a video of James McNicholas. But your influence on, well, I wasn't going to go here actually right away, but tell us your Arsenal origin story. Let's get started with that. When did you first start watching the team, and how did it become your passion?
Okay, so I mean, I'll be honest, I'm one of them. My dad was a big Arsenal fan, and he took me to the ground. And it took me a while to get into football. Actually, I actually really rejected it when I was about 5-6 years old, and I sort of thought, why is my dad forcing me to kind of kick other kids for this ball? And it was raining, and the weather was awful, and it was muddy. I hated it. I really hated it. And I don't know what it was, just sort of being around it. My dad would be watching it at home, and I'd pick up bits. And I've got to be honest, this is a painful thing I've never really admitted, is that I became a fan. I'm probably the problem. I probably jinxed it. The minute I became a fan, my first game was the Champions League final. I know. And
that was my first game back after a long hiatus from having kids and moving back to the States. So I had those 2 years in the late 80s, but then my first game back as a fan was the Champions League final as well. And so I'm right there with you, my friend.
I remember I saw bits and bobs before, but I was very young, and the Champions League final, I remember it so clearly, which is crazy because, it was kind of my first time, watching Arsenal, getting really into it. I remember getting so into it, and then from that point on, I was hooked. So I very much fell in love with the Rosickis, the Hlebs, Fabregas, the kind of early Emirates era players, which is why, for me, there'll never be enough Fabio Vieiras. Whenever we're linked to a player like that, whether it's a priority, I'm like, bring him in. I love these kind of guys. So, yeah, Dad took me to a game. I think my first Emirates game was beating Watford 3-0. Henry bagged 1 or 2 maybe. And we had some really good teams, but a lot of it was heartbreak. The Eduardo, situation. Obviously, we lose out on that title. And I think we've had a couple teams that could have been worthy of a title in those years. But, while it's not really a pleasant thing to say, it's kind of we've gone further and further away with every year. But I do think the tide's changing, and has been for the last year. So, yeah. I've not been there for the best days, but listen, I've seen some great days. 4 FA Cups, they were really special moments, and I've seen Arsenal entertain and have some big wins and beat the odds on a few occasions. So yeah, very happy Arsenal fan.
Yeah, and James, along those lines, James Benge, the feeling around the press corps. I've spent some time around certain members of the press corps in the American tour. But I know the larger press corps, there's a lot of positivity. Kaya has just told us that. Obviously, we've spoken to Tom and others who are part of that on an everyday basis. It's just a happy place right now. There might be 1 or 2 strange unfinished things that are hanging over the club, but I won't speculate as to what those might be. But I mean, from a playing standpoint, from an on the pitch standpoint, has there been a season where there was so much energy and positivity going into it?
It's been a long time. I think maybe you're going back to the start of the sort of, the year before Arsenal finished second. I mean, even then there were the questions about Petr Cech. It felt like they were always one thing short. And maybe this is sort of the first season in a while where it feels like Arsenal have addressed the proper weaknesses in the club. Everyone said they need a striker. They got one early. Everyone said they need a midfielder. They may well have one in Zinchenko. And no, I think the big thing is you're used to going into these seasons with something of a crisis hanging over your head, especially contracts. Ozil, Ramsey, Alexis, Wenger himself. And I mean, I know that there's the Bukayo Saka stuff, but it's very clear that he's not going anywhere this summer. So there isn't that clear out there crisis hanging over Arsenal that complicates things. The squad, and I spent a little bit. I think I can probably say I spent a little bit of time around some of them last week. They are in a really good place. They're relaxed. They're joking. They seem to enjoy spending time with each other. These are all really good omens. And then on the football side, there was such clear progress. It's a young team. It's a team that the fans can invest in. It's a team that, like Arsenal staff and their colleagues can all kind of get invested in and get behind. There's a real family atmosphere around the club. Were
you around the club last summer in the preseason? I mean, again, I know your duties have changed a little bit since you have joined CBS. But I mean, do you have anything to compare this season against that's recent or just? I mean,
I certainly remember that the Arteta's first preseason, it felt quite chaotic. And that one I was covering the club day in, day out. Obviously, I wasn't around the squad and around the players because of COVID. And that was the same last summer. It all felt quite chaotic and you didn't quite know who was in charge, especially with Sangye leaving. There was no sort of unifying factor. And then right at the end, Mikel Arteta gets this promotion after 6, and you just think, where on earth has this come from? And the Willian signing, all these things. And I mean, remember, they were trying to push through wage. It felt a bit like Barcelona do this year, actually, where it's the players are kind of baffled as to why Arsenal were, at the time, I remember spending a lot of money on Partey and Gabriel. I think they were one of the biggest spenders that summer as well. And then they were being told, you need to cut your wages by, was it 25%? And there was a lot of rancor and unhappiness in the dressing room. You had Ozil situation as well. So I think what was kind of, when you look back on it, these were all things that Arteta was trying to address, and it took time, and it took a period of bottoming out and finishing 8th in the league again. And I think now it's clear he's got the group of people that he wants around him, above him, below him. And it all works. It all works a bit more harmoniously. There isn't a director of football who doesn't actually know anything about football, and he will tell you that. Raul Sanllehi will tell you he didn't really know about football.
He knew about deals and
he knows about deals.
As a journalist, James, James B and I, our Arsenal fandom is tipping over on we've been supporting the team more years that is considered less successful compared to older. Of course, we're not undervaluing the FA Cups, right? But I'm sure James B went through a period similar to me where Chelsea away or whatever, our mentality going to this game was like, fuck, okay, here we go, we're gonna watch this shit, right? Let's buckle up. As a reporter and a fan, was it kind of the same thing for you where you're like, God dang it, I have to write about this? Like those dark days where we were getting slapped about proper or the top 4, top 5, or did it kind of mess up the joy, if you will, of being a reporter for the Arsenal?
No, because I mean, this is going to sound very pretentious, but I think a lot of journalists who also cover the club that have supported and grown up supporting the club they write about, and look, let's be realistic, you get that on every patch, every beat, will tell you that it is quite easy actually to disengage.
I don't think you get it as much as with Arsenal. I mean, virtually every Arsenal journalist of note grew up as an Arsenal fan. It's bizarre. I think
it's true. Somebody might surprise you. I mean, yeah,
I love it. I love that aspect, by the way, that you are a fan, you grow up like that, and then you.
I wish I wasn't. I wish I wasn't.
Change the way you consume it.
There are moments where it really does. It cuts through to you. Baku, when I had travelled, and I'm privileged to be there, but I travelled 4,000 fucking miles. I spent a night sleeping on the floor of Istanbul airport, and then I saw the players kind of call it quits when they were 2-0 down, with the exception of like Iwobi and Joe Willock. That I hated, and I couldn't separate myself there. There've been a couple of others. Obviously, the derby is another one that you can't turn off entirely. Yeah. But actually, for most of them, I find it quite easy to just turn it, to flick a switch in my head. Okay, not a fan. And when it's bad, obviously, as anyone will tell you that's a writer, those are the most enjoyable things to write. You do have to keep catching yourself and telling you, look, it's not the end of the world. Arsenal isn't on fire right now. But, obviously when things are going quite badly for a team, it flows quite easily. It's quite hard, I think, to write about when everything's great. When things are bad, people want to talk to you. Some people want to talk to you. They want to tell you how tough things are. Everyone's got someone they want to blame. Whereas I think kind of telling the stories of how rosy everything is can grate a little bit as a journalist. But yeah, so I didn't hate it too much, but obviously there are exceptions, and
let's do this then, because you've just brought up kind of how the traditional media, let's say, handle good patches and bad patches. And James, if for any reason you need to leave or want to leave, just say that you need to leave. But James, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, because you are an example of what I consider to be the new AFTV. And I don't, Robbie knows how I feel about this. I'm not speaking out of turn by distinguishing between the new and the old AFTV. But there's certainly been an evolution, and it's an evolution that I think is moving in a positive direction. Not that I hold the banner or, support, or, it's not that, but obviously the stigma, as I'm sure you're aware, of Arsenal Fan TV, is that it tends to capitalize on negativity surrounding those poor periods of time. And I think that came from some very real reasons, and some things that kind of weren't under people's control, got out of control before it could be brought under control. But all that said, what kind of caused you to say, hey, what was it, the desire to have a counterpoint? Because you are generally known as being knowledgeable, level-headed, possibly positive, but not as an agenda basis, and kind of a newer, fresher face that tends to be featured more often. So it happens to be around a time when Arsenal are kind of on the upswing, but not exclusively. So what is your take? Again, I'm asking 9 questions, but asking none. What is your goal for your involvement in Arsenal Fan TV, and how do you see your role when the team is doing well or when the team's not doing well?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Is it?
It's a difficult one. When I joined AFTV, whether it be there was still the old AFTV, the new AFTV, however you want to differentiate. I don't know when Robbie felt like he wanted to start getting things like a studio and covering it more generally and mixing it up a little bit. But I loved ultimately the concept, and I'd been watching it. And actually, I remember in 2017, I was on my year abroad, and I'm not ashamed to admit that I was. I'd moved to Italy. I was going to be there for a year. I had no friends, and I'd just go to the Irish pub and watch Arsenal games. And AFTV at the time, I was really connecting with it, because even if I didn't agree with what certain people are saying, there were people who, in their way, were understanding how I felt. Now, I didn't agree with everything, but you watch enough interviews and you find, okay, this guy kind of resembles more what I think and whatever. And then you kind of go back to them. And I found it was a real way for me to stay connected to the club. So I always had a real fondness for AFTV because of that. When they were kind of looking to then expand and get more presenters in, I did always think to myself, and I remember saying this to Robbie when I first met him, I did think to myself, maybe I could do something a little different. Maybe I could put my spin on it. I was always interested in, the numbers side of the game, the analysis. By the way, my inspirations are the likes of Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher, for example. What they do on Monday Night Football. I still think that's one of the best football shows, if not the best in the world. I love watching it when they go into the depth. And I thought, imagine if I could I'll never be anywhere. I won't be anything like them. But imagine if I could just bring my kind of version. So, I think sold that a little bit to Robbie when we kind of first met and we were talking about it. And I've just sort of tried to bring a different thing because everyone on AFTV has their own flavor, their own different way of talking about Arsenal and the things they focus on. And I think now more than ever, we offer such a variety in terms of characters and people. Every time you use the word character, people that, but personalities, and I think we are covering a lot of bases now. I do feel like there is a little bit of something for everyone on AFTV at the moment. But as you said, there was a point where maybe it was seen for maybe just more certain fans who felt a certain way. So we're still trying to reach out to people to kind of show that we are still doing all this other stuff. But yeah, have I answered your question? I'm not sure if I have. But
I don't know what my question was. But yes, you absolutely answered it.
I had a little bit of a follow-up. So
Mike James wants to ask something of James, actually.
Sorry, and then I might dash off. But I'm really intrigued by this. Obviously, we all know, and you're not here as a spokesman for AFTV, I'm sure, but we all know, I think, that within the dressing room, I think there are a lot of people that have kind of, especially, and now with this squad, have almost grown up with a view of AFTV. And I remember sort of Hector Bellerin. I remember being in the room when he was talking about how it sort of profits off failure. And I know that everyone involved in that, or nearly everyone, maybe at the time it was a bit more debatable, but everyone involved in AFTV is an Arsenal fan. And I just wonder when the people that you have invested so much in emotionally, very publicly kind of take issue with what you do when you're talking about them, how much of a challenge has it been for AFTV, and how long will it sort of take to right that ship to, back to the stage where AFTV might be able to talk to the players, might be able to have a good relationship with them?
Yeah, it's a great question. Actually, I'm going to answer it. I don't want to feel like I'm, swerving anything. What I would say is when the Bellerin stuff happened, I wasn't actually there at the time.
Yeah.
But in terms of more recently, I do know that there are players, whether it be like a follow on Instagram or whatever, I think there are a few that do engage with people on AFTV a lot more. I know Robbie's got decent relationships with some of them. And I think, we've been told that, some, or if not most, I don't really know, do watch it, especially when they've won, I think. But yeah, it's a difficult one because I don't think anyone from AFTV would ever, stand here or sit here on this show or whatever and go, we've never made mistakes. We don't understand where this comes from. Certain things maybe, there are certain, actually looking back, was that or whatever. But I think it's about sort of, let me put it this way. Even when we're losing, we're on a 3-match losing streak and I'm feeling really, really frustrated, there is just something, this little bell in my head that goes, just remember, like, whatever you say, they might have seen us. They might be I'm not saying they're watching. I don't know, but I do always think you do have a responsibility just to remember that you can. There's abuse and there's criticism, and I think criticism's allowed. But there is just there is a fine line. Some people would say there's a bit of a debate between if you say someone. Am I allowed to swear on this podcast? I'm not sure. If I am, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So if you say blah 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 was shit today, for some people that's a bit too harsh, but for others that's they were. You're allowed to say that. So I always like to just tread on the more cautious side, but it's a difficult one. I think it's hard because I'm trying to put myself in the club's perspective here. I like to think that not that there was necessarily a relationship to mend. I think Arsenal and AFTV would both accept that, we can't do our thing if we're kind of trying to serve the club. The point is being honest and giving the fans perspective, and the club also have themselves to protect. And that is completely and utterly fair. We kind of understand where we are on both ends of the spectrum. But in terms of maybe a better sort of bond and understanding and communication, I think it's slowly getting, with Edu, for example, recently, being very kind of welcoming of Lee and Cecil when they're out in Nuremberg and addressing them in Orlando as well. The players seem,
I've never seen a guy jump on Lee Judges so quickly before. Like I don't even, I'm not even that excited to see Lee when I see him as Edu was.
Yeah. I mean, they seem to have a good banter between them. So I think it's one of those where in an ideal world, and again, I'm speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for AFTV, and Robbie might have a different way. We don't talk about it too much, but from my perspective, I would say in an ideal world, there's a degree of understanding, working together in some ways, but also it works because they do their thing, we do our thing. But of course, it's about understanding that we also do we got to be honest. We've got to represent the fans as honestly as possible. But it's also understanding we've got a responsibility. We do. There's a wide reach.
You just used a word that I think a lot of people would take issue with, and that was the word represent. I think a lot, and I don't know if that was a intentional, if it was meant, but not necessarily, because that is the biggest bugaboo, is that people will say, and I don't know why the word bugaboo is it's coming out of my mouth every 10 seconds.
That's a baby stroller, by the way. I think we should say people say the same thing about the Arsenal Supporters Trust, and they said the same thing about
you don't represent me.
Blog, and they say
and
I think sometimes it becomes a debate around AFTV, and I just I have to be honest, I don't really watch it, and I think that therefore people should be willing to just switch off and not kind of use AFTV as a a dartboard or whatever for every issue they have with the fan base, which does seem to happen. But yeah, I know I've interrupted you.
Sorry, so actually I'll address that immediately. I'm so glad you pulled me up on that and I'm annoyed I said it, because it's the one thing I'm always so careful about saying. And actually, I always try. I've sometimes actually stumbled on myself. I've been in lives. I said,
it's like when Tom Canton calls his viewers his fans. I mean, I absolutely love it. I stitch him up over that. But
and let me clear that up, because I understand, by the way, why that absolutely annoys people. So when I say represent fans, I mean the fans that are coming on and talking. And when I say that, I think it's because, maybe after a game we do 10 to 20 fan cams, then you've got maybe 10 to 20 videos being sent. So there's a lot of people who are then there's the people who are there week in, week out. So yeah, you're right. It's absolutely wrong to say we represent fans. We don't. But what I mean is we represent the fans that are coming on. And if we are to represent anyone, the platform is for fans, and anyone can come on whenever they want. So thank you for pulling me up on that, because it is something that, except for this one show where I'm talking about it, I'm normally a lot more careful about, because you are right. And a lot of people say, listen, you don't represent me. And that is completely and utterly fair enough.
Well, and my kind of challenge in all of this is that I just don't deal well. And Mike and I, look, one of the reasons I was really glad, Mike, that you were my co-pilot for this segment is because we have had arguments over this. With nothing jeopardizing our relationship, but I have tended to try to promote nuance.
Yeah, I hate you for it. I'm just kidding. No,
he keeps it very close, and I don't mean to to pull you up over this either, but put you in an awkward position. But my personal viewpoint about something is, it's just not get caught up in mass hysteria about something. There's nuance involved in things. An organization can be the sum of parts. It can be influenced by individuals, and sometimes there's an evolution to things. And I hate just saying this is bad, especially if I'm basing it off of A, other people's opinions, B, old opinions or facts, or C, just kind of the general tone. I guess this is other people's opinions, but the general kind of stigma of something. And so I have spent a lot of my time over the last 5 or 6 years defending AFTV's right to exist, defending AFTV's platform as being one that is a supply demand thing. We're looking at it kind of from an economic standpoint, and also seeing the evolution. I mean, I was in AFTV studios less than a year ago and couldn't believe the level of organization that's happening there. I was on a conference call 3 days ago with Robbie and Turkish and Kaz.
Kaz, yeah.
And facilitated by the most lovely woman, Jackie, who is, like considering herself the mother hen of the. I mean, it is a completely differently run organization than Robbie standing in front of a camera that was held by Tao,
I believe it. Yeah.
Tao. I mean, it's different, and I just think a lot of people's minds are made up. I twice on this podcast I played a 2-minute clip with me and Troops, who I just enjoy his company. I don't care what you say about him, what he does, Barstool. I mean, there's a lot to that you're entitled to not care for the guy about. I enjoy his time. He's actually shown me personally to be a pretty caring, concerned individual when it comes to people he likes. And we had a little bit of banter, and I got 3 people who like followed me on Twitter saying unfollowed. Like the bulk of my relationship with them was negated by me being friends with someone who they don't like because of what other people say and what they viewed about him on Twitter without knowing him personally.
Troops has always been great to me. Yeah. I mean, they all have, to be fair. But yeah, I know what you mean.
So just before I deep dive and just give you a little bit of my perspective on.
And James, if
I was gonna say right before I do that, I just say, James, thank you so much for joining us, James.
I have to really quick get your top 4, your bottom. I have to contractually get.
Yeah.
Bottom 3, and,
I like this.
And a surprise prediction.
I've done this. So what's the third bit?
And a surprise prediction, kind of something off base. Doesn't have to be Arsenal related, just football related that people might be surprised to hear.
Well, one of them actually fits into the other. So my top 4 are City, Liverpool, Spurs, Arsenal. I know, but it's right. And then my bottom 3, which includes my surprise prediction, is Bournemouth, Forest, and Wolves.
Okay, we've seen that. We have a few Wolves.
Have you? I thought it was going quite rogue saying Wolves, but they've been crap for months.
Yeah, no, I think Fergus and Gabe Millard both said Wolves. One of them was just saying that because they're at the bottom of the table right now, alphabetically. But all right, so you're going out on a limb and saying Wolves will suck. James, thank you for joining us from the Amalfi Coast. Which are you actually like in?
I'm in Priano, which is bang between Amalfi and Positano.
Yeah, it's a lovely location, and it's a lovely outfit that you have on, and it's been a lovely chat and a lovely bunch of different stuff. Thank you for joining us, James. I appreciate it.
Cheers to me, mate.
Take care, mate. So bringing together all sorts of different folks in this podcast, I love it.
I love it.
And that's what this family is about. This podcast family. It is now 6:00 Eastern time, 11 a.m. We are entering now hour number, what is it? Hour number 16 of the 27-hour podcast. And
you guys are amazing. That is amazing. I wish I could take credit like that, but it's all magic over here. I've been on and off periodically. Mike has been here since the start.
Mike, you're a champion, man. That's incredible.
The enjoyment level of the content of this podcast, the discussions, the variety, the people I've been on, it's my crowning achievement as a Gooner and everything is putting this thing together for the second year running. And this year, I think compared to last year, it's just been even more entertaining. I mean, I might be a little bit biased, but the conversations have been more enjoyable this year than ever before. So, and just different and unique. As it is 6:00, we are going to do a prize draw, which we do on the hour, and again it's 6:00 Eastern time in the morning. the prize that we'll be drawing now is another Ruth Beck art print. And the Ruth Beck art print, this is the one I was talking about earlier that really just brings it back to me. And this is the North Bank of Highbury. This was my railing right here in the 88-89 season. You can still see my vomit on it from the Derby game in May. And we're going to pick a winner for that now from our randomizer. So let's go to the randomizer. And again, if you've won a Ruth Beck art print already, you are not eligible to win a second one. So let's see who wins this one real quick. Share screen. And the winner, hopefully we'll get it on the first try without having to redraw. We can't. Nick Canning had a significant donation, which is why his name.
Third time now.
Yeah, well, when you give a lot of money, your name keeps coming up. But Nick will have a great chance of winning a kit, because we're going to start really getting into the kits and the signed kits and the legend kits. So he's going to have a great chance at those. But Mackenzie Dolnick also has won. I knew this was going to start happening at some point. Last year, it happened like in the first 2 hours, like the same people kept winning. Come on, let's get a new name up here. Scott Willis. All right. Scott is the first person to have appeared on this podcast and then subsequently won a prize.
Very nice.
Scott, we love you. AKA Oh That Crab has won That, my favorite Arsenal print from Ruth Beck right now, which has sentimental value to me. So congratulations to Scott, and thank you for your very generous donation, both monetarily and in the form of your expertise in an hour that was very enjoyable for me about 7-8 hours ago. So James, I was specifically when I'm juggling things on and offline, and James Bench, there's been a lot of crossovers, but James Bench coming from the traditional journalism world, and he was running a little bit late, only had a half an hour segment planned, but then said, you know what, I'll stay much later. And I'm like, well, you're bumping up not against another journalist, but against an AFTV guy. Would that work? And I asked, I'm so glad that we did, because, there's no need for these worlds to be separate anymore.
I completely agree. I completely agree. And I've got so much time and respect for, James Bench, the work he does, and so many, you talk about Charles Watts, David Ornstein, Simon Collins. There's so many of them. James McNicholas, who I had the pleasure of sort of chatting to properly out in Orlando. Yeah, these are the guys that actually inspired me. I was a training journalist. I wanted to be them. I wanted to go and be in press conferences and interview players and write articles. And I didn't actually foresee an on-camera career for myself. And the AFTV came along, and I thought, well, let's give it a go. Let's see if I can maybe I'm made for this, and I've really enjoyed it.
Let me ask you a private question. Is this your career right now?
Yeah. This is what I do.
Awesome. That's awesome.
That's
fantastic. All things considered, like it. You said you wanted to be a journalist. Now you're in content creation, but in a different manner. You're not typing things up, but you're actually setting up interviews, and there's a lot of work going into it. Like Mike and I do it amateur hour. We're not doing it full time, and we know how time
it's a hobby.
It could be. It's a hobby. Yeah. So, all things considered, do you like this type of interaction more, getting to meet people and interview people versus just like interviewing and have to transcribe to everything that you just interviewed somebody about, or report over a game more analytically, like stat wise, or do you like this path that life led you kind of a little bit better?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've always loved socializing. So I do like the live shows, the chatting to people, interviewing. That's just me. That's not really necessarily just part of the job. I've just always loved that side of things. I think the thing I'd say is where I've noticed the biggest difference, besides, one's written, one's on camera, all that. I think with written journalism, I would. And listen, I had maybe sort of 5-6 months, doing some sports writing here and there. And this is sort of after my master's, because I did a lot during my master's and all that. And I always found I was far more calculated and considered when I was writing. You read it back, actually, I didn't quite word it. I wanted to. Sometimes when you're doing a fan cam after the game, I watch it back and I go, I I didn't quite mean it. Listen, we just had an example of it 5 minutes ago when I said use the word represent. Like I didn't mean that, but like you can't.
Right.
Once you said it, right? So there's a lot of. I think that's the one thing I find sometimes, and the internet and the world's very unforgiving with that. You know, you can say something,
and there's no greater example of that. I mean, the person who is probably most famous in the Arsenal spheres for saying things that are taken out of context intentionally, in many cases, is Josh Kroenke himself, who, you know, James and I were 2 out of the 5 people in the room in Denver when he granted an impromptu interview. It was not a press conference. It was not a planned thing. So it was him really speaking off the cuff, and he just found a way of using some of the words that could have that were so easy to take out of context if not put in the proper context. Like, it's not the fans' job to worry about transfers, which was taken as, you know, fans should just mind their own business, when in fact it meant we're supposed to be the ones slaving over this so that you can just enjoy the product on the pitch. You know, the fans' job is just to come to the stadium and cheer for the team. That was taken so far out of context by print media, because you read what, you know, those were the words he said. And the Sun, through one of the other journalists that was there, was all too happy to have an article that said wind-up merchant Josh Kroenke's 10 most insulting comments in an interview that I thought was completely genuine, which prompted us to post the audio of it, because I needed people to hear the context of what he was saying.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, the written word and intentionally so can sometimes be taken out of context to a way that drives the frenzy and that sort of thing. In the audio format, in the interview format, there's almost an interesting art to it, and it can be a double-edged sword. You know, if you're good at a rant, you're going to attract views on YouTube. People that, I mean, we all know the originals that were just good at rants. DT, good at rants. You may not like what he had to say, and you may not like him as a person, and I certainly don't and didn't. But you know, the guy could just stand in front of a microphone and go for 5 hours, five minutes, probably 5 hours. Troop, same thing. Dan Potts, same thing. Love Dan Potts. He can, you know, it sounds like he's written it down, but he hasn't. So there's a talent to that, and it's what draws views. But can that work against the platform in a sense that despite AFTV really having a mission of interviewing, and they do, interviewing 20 people after a game, 25 people after a game, to get any and all insight that possibly could come, to know what people are most interested in, and it being the same style, and seeing people come from being, you know, in the outside of the scrum to now getting on camera and trying to replicate those originals. You know, how does Robbie and how does the team manage trying not to be a rant cast anymore?
Sure.
Because that is the YouTube generation, whether you like it or not, is not after good considered commentary and analysis. They're after rants and strong statements.
Well, it's a difficult one. Again, I wasn't really there when the main sort of growth of the channel occurred. The thing was, what you can't escape. I know Arsenal fans don't like this, and I get it. I really do. What you can't escape is rival fans just will want to watch. It's not just AFTV; it's loads of channels to catch, you know, the Arsenal fans' pain. And I do the same with
who hasn't gone to watch Mark Goldbridge after? I mean, I can't stand the guy, but
Goldbridge, was it Expressions from Spurs and the two brothers?
Well, there's these
I see clips like that. I see
two little goofballs from Spurs that are like, oh no, he's done it. Oh my god, and you know, it is entertaining, and you can't stop that from happening. Like the only way to stop that from happening is Arsenal go, you know, invincible again.
And you know what really sucks about that? I'm sorry, James. Just kind of cross. Go ahead, finish it.
No,
and now I'm getting on your case for interrupting me, interrupting him. So yeah,
that's right. I mean, it's the nature of it a little bit. But the one thing I always say, and listen, over the 8 years that AFTV has existed, have people ever come and maybe put on a bit of an act? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, you'd assume maybe. I don't know. But
the answer is yes, Jen.
yeah, sure. But I don't know any. But yeah,
Right.
but the people I know who I've sort of seen, regularly do fan cams or whatever. When I tell you these guys, like, and they're feeling it. Like, people might go, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it's some fans have traveled all this way. They spent all this money. It's their life. I'm a massive Arsenal fan, and if I'm about to say what I'm about to say, and people might even use this against me, but you know what? Let's just say it. I'm able to, even as a massive Arsenal fan, just detach myself and go, I've got friends I love, I've got family I love, I've got other things I can do, whatever. And lots of other people have that too. But when things get really tough, I try to just focus on that. Okay, Arsenal just lost their 5th game in a row, 7-8. You think of the autumn in 2020, and I try and just think of other things, and that tends to just compose me a little bit. But a lot of people, they're really feeling it. They do a fan cam 5-10 minutes after a game. They've just seen the result and whatever, and they spend all this, and they are really feeling these things. And they are, unfortunately, the moments that are gonna be picked up. They're the moments that rival fans are going to laugh at. But they're also, if you're talking pure time, amount of time on the channel, they're the lowest percentage of content we do in terms of the supporters club. Very, it's an hour of in-depth, thoughtful discussion with a range of fans, and anyone can be on that. We've had Sharoy, for example, who came. He's great. He came on a Twitter space. We've been doing these Twitter spaces. We probably get 10 to 30 sort of Arsenal fans coming on a Monday night. Sharoy was fantastic. We invited him down to the studio. So, we try and always have these other platforms. Tactical Insight, I do with Graham, is always, okay, we've had a couple of days to just swallow that garbage. Let's try and figure out what happened. And I tell you that when it comes to that show, no one watches it. Well, not no one. It gets good. But barely anyone watches it when we lose or have a bad result. So it's one of those. It's a difficult one. But the thing I always say, and this is what I come back to, I'm surprised it's a point that hasn't really been made more often. By the way, I don't work on the finances side of things. I don't look up the numbers, whatever. But let's just say, for the argument's sake, that there is a spike because rival fans love to see Arsenal fans, frustrated when things don't go our way. More often than not, though, there's a real long-term impact on the channel that comes from Arsenal not doing well, aka last season not being in Europe. That's a lot of watch-alongs. That's a lot of previews. That's a lot of fan cams. That's a lot of content that's not getting done because Arsenal weren't good enough to be in it. There's when we get knocked out of the FA Cup, like we did Southampton in the 4th round a couple of years ago. And again, there was a real frustration poured out from, people who'd been on the channel that day, and I'm sure people have their things to say, but ultimately we didn't do the next round. And only the year before, the watch along for the FA Cup final had a massive following and massive viewership. So it's one of those.
That's a good point. I never actually thought of that, in the sense that the stigma is we do better when we lose, but in football, unlike other sports, American sports, where there's X number of games per season, you play less games when you lose. And if you are thinking that it's all about money, and it's a business, so it is in the sense, but it does not serve the business better to lose cup finals and to not get into Europe. That's actually a very good point that I think a lot of people probably fail to consider. I thought I might have actually blocked the wrong person there. That was a.
Can you? I tried clicking on him. I can't click him.
I was trying to block the bot. I don't know how to do that, but yeah, I'm really sorry, mate. Did I block you altogether?
Yeah, that's what I was trying. He's been with us for
I know
hours,
that's the last person I wanted to block. Let me actually go offline and try to figure that out. So sorry, James.
No worries.
James, do you find that there's still fans that hold AFTV to priors from the past? Because I had a long stint where, so it's funny, we're talking about representing the fans, right? Like, I don't take a big offense to some a fan channel saying we represent the fans, in the sense that there's so many different personalities. you're gonna like one of them. Like personally, like when Lee Gunner used to speak, I'm like, yeah, I like what he's saying. When some of the more extremists used to speak, I'm like, okay, you're going over the top. You're a little bit too much for me. And eventually, I essentially kind of, I'm gonna say, fell out of love with the concept of fan cam AFTV, and I went away for a very long time, and then without joking, maybe a month ago, my YouTube feed is just full of Arsenal podcasts. It's all I do. It's Arsenal podcast, and eventually they're playing in my earbuds, and AFTV cycles on, and I'm unaware I'm listening to AFTV, right? And then eventually I check my phone to check the time, and I'm like, holy shit, that's AFTV. And to me, it's like my own surprise, like the change, like the change between, years ago to what it is now, the productions, and now, as you said, more of a podcast setting, not heated after a bad loss. Because if you're heated after a bad loss, I don't know how people do that, because it's hard to keep your emotions in check. But do you feel like, does it frustrate you in a way, or is it just kind of part of the job that you're kind of getting used to? That I'm going to assume that you will still get a few claims like, I'm not going to watch AFTV because of this, and you might be thinking in your head, well, hold on, mate, we haven't done that for years at this point.
Yeah, I think the only way I can say it is this is my style. And I kind of approach this for kind of I love that, never left. I
accidentally blocked him, and I don't even know if he realized he was blocked. Like I blocked him in trying to get the spammer out, and he's the last person I wanted to block. Sorry, go.
God bless. Sorry, what was the point I was making? Yeah, so if people don't like us, or don't like certain people on the channel, or don't like, honestly, I'm not just saying this. That's really fine. Like, it really is. And sometimes I just rather than, in that case, let's not cross paths, if that makes sense. We watch Arsenal, you watch Arsenal, we do whatever. It's a difficult one, because I can understand. I'm not one of these people who's like, I can't believe we're hated. There's also a lot of love. So I think for me, I just try and focus on that. And if I can have a conversation with people, then great. And if they don't see it from my perspective, that's fine. I always try and say, like, I think, what I was just saying about not representing fans, I also got to say, I'm not always, it sounds silly, I'm not always representing AFTV. And what I mean by that is, so if someone were to say to me, I've got a problem with what you do, I'd say let's break this down. Because do you have a problem with what me specifically do? Because that's what I can talk to you about. I can talk to you about my job and my opinions. And I guess the way I'd put it is, it's not exactly the same, but do you hate Sky Sports because you don't think Gary Neville's a good pundit? I think that's the way I want to sort of start readdressing a little bit the way.
Yeah, and I guess the historical thing is, if Sky Sports had a history of trolling people, and I'm not
Sure.
I'm not saying AFTV was trolling anyone. I'm just saying, like if they had kind of almost a market strategy of that, or the perception of a market strategy of that, kind of like TalkSport does with Adrian Durham and all that, then yeah, you might actually hate the or have this bias against the platform. But again, I think part of what causes problems and division in our world overall is the inability to see nuance, and the inability to care about evolution when it exists. And
So
yeah,
Logan Paul got to where he was by doing jackassy, obnoxious,
gosh, I don't like that human being.
borderline illegal, insensitive things. Does that, when he was a lot younger, and as a guy who has an 18-year-old son who finds him somewhat amusing at this point, and is way into KSI and loves this new partnership with the drink. Like how long do you keep holding that against him? Are you willing to,
Sure.
if if you have children who have gone through their teenage years and had rough years with you and look like they were headed down a wrong path and then suddenly kind of grow out of it, are you going to hold their past actions against them? And comparing AFTV to your child is a little silly, but I just like people having an open mind rather than a closed mind. And
I think that works both ways, though. And what I mean by that is, if we want nuance in the way AFTV is looked at, we also have to have nuance in the way that we look at certain things. And I think that has been much more present on the channel. This is my opinion. I think it's been much more present on the channel than it's been given credit for. But I also understand why that's not always seen or whatever. It's a difficult one because amongst those, AFTV isn't perfect even today. The new version, so it's not perfect and it's not done things perfectly over the years. I would argue that no one is and nothing is, but over those times that people refer to, whoever, certain people or whatever, it did a lot of good as well. Robbie was traveling, following this team everywhere, and there are a lot of people, I saw it firsthand in America, going up to Robbie and saying, like, thank you so much.
He was mobbed, and I think that bothers a lot of people, is that the creators have become celebrities in their own sense. And Troops literally has perfected the walk where he goes 5 inches at a time because he just knows that he's going to be stopped for another photo. I love pulling the move where I ask Troops in front of a bunch of people for a photo, and then I hand him my camera so he can take one of me. Love
that.
That never gets old.
Yeah.
But I have a picture of this random guy with me from Baltimore, and I was looking through my photos. I was like, why did I take so many pictures with that guy? And I'm like, oh, those are the pictures that Troops took. It's don't hate the player, hate the game. As my people say, it's a sign of the generational shift of what makes popularity and what drives commerce. And don't hate someone for I guess trying to take advantage of that. And if you're doing it in a way that actually provides value, which is I guess what the argument is based on, what you're providing is value. What Cecil's providing is value. What Lee Judges has provided to me was always value, because he would have been doing this starting in the 1970s and 1980s had it been around. It's not just a newfound way of becoming famous.
On this question from Eoin Young, James, I find this interesting because I always kind of looked at the online behavior to be very different than the behavior of fans in the stands. And in recent years, more of the chance of AFTV out has come by. So
we've seen the negative happen to Ty as well, the
Ty. It's horrible,
I thought someone was going to get really hurt, and it seems like that trend of just trolling people and trying to get them as some sort of trophy has at least subsided a little bit.
Yeah, that is, Jesus, honestly, just mute them or block them. There's literally no reason to take that outside of the channel. There's ways of avoiding that. But Joe and Young's question here, James, what are the positives and the negative experiences you've had during the games being associated with AFTV? Pick your choice, by the way, James. If you don't want to share anything too negative, you could just do the positives.
No, look,
do you wear a cup, like a protective cup?
No,
I wear a helmet to my games.
I tend to wear a jacket with a hood because it's so cold.
You wear a helmet like the guy on Something About Mary or something. Baseball. Sorry.
I'd say I think it's pretty muted on both ends. I still go and it's a game, and the odd person is like, oh, you're that guy. And they're always very polite. And then in terms of negative experiences, again, personally, again, I'm speaking for myself, and often when the fan cams are going on, this is why I got massive respect for Cecil. He often fronts up and does the fan cams and the crowds around him, and I'm sort of, just managing whether it be whatever it is, socials and chatting to fans, and generally, hopefully, enjoying a win as well. Flicking through Twitter, there's nothing better after a win. But you've had chance. You've had people say things in a direction to us. Some people say things, and
I mean, the chance at Robbie I was at Leicester away last year, and I know it wasn't just at Leicester away, but the chance, the Bender chance,
Yeah, awful. Yeah.
bang out of order. The guy's a human being who is not
Sure.
I know it's being said just to troll, but like that is not okay in my mind. If you don't like the guy, fine. I disagree with you that he's a bad guy. He's certainly not the thing that people are saying. And it's just, thank God that the guy has the skin to be able to take that. I mean, he knows what he has to put up with, and he doesn't shy away from it. He doesn't get sucked into it either. I looked at him while they were chanting this in the section I was in. I looked at him, and he's just like, what can you do?
Well, I mean, and answering this question as well from Loki Lovkey, I wouldn't. It's such a weird way to explain it, right? But you're watching the team you love, so things like, do you get hate or do you feel threatened? But then on the other side, you get love, and people want to take pictures sometimes and all that. It sounds really, really weird, but you just don't focus on it. I know that might sound really again. I've said this 1,000 times since I've been here, but I'm only speaking for myself. But I'm normally thinking, oh, Ben White's at right back today. How's that going to look? I'm not really focused too much on everything around. I'm excited to be there. I'm not one of the fans that's had the pleasure of being able to go all the time. My family, have a season ticket, but I don't always get to go. Away games, I did some. I wasn't able to do so. When I do go, I just really want to just enjoy it, and I get that sort of buzz before and after games. And I don't really focus on these other things. And the thing I always say is, I think everyone can coexist. Personally, I think we can do our thing, and I think we can keep trying to always better ourselves. And I think fans can have opinions, whether they love or don't like and hate, whatever it is, and we all get on just supporting Arsenal. And it's a really good time to be supporting Arsenal, in my opinion. I'm feeling really positive, about this team.
The number of folks focusing on a fan channel being part of any kind of problem at this point, if the club is succeeding, if the content of the channel is reflecting the performance of the team, which when things were bad, that's exactly what was happening. It just wasn't pleasant. I don't see how you could say anything about it. So, again, I try to be genuine with my, I don't play to other people, and their opinions. I've always said, I've had the fortune, I guess, or the intrigue of meeting the vast majority, and added a handful of more to my collection of people that I've actually had conversations with and gotten to know from AFTV over the years. And I can say that there are honestly only 2 cunts that I've met that are associated with AFTV, and one's in prison, one's in Spain. And everyone else that I've met has been very, very nice, very, very, smart. I mean, the conversations I've had privately are about business and about, economics and, the economics of fan channels necessarily. But like, it's fascinating. And I feel bad for people who are rushing to judgment based on something less than that. They're entitled to their opinion. But you know what? And I think from reading some of the comments in chat, I think you are a big part of helping to change some of those opinions.
Well, I appreciate that, and I think the last thing I'd say on it is I'll always shake anyone's hand and chat to anyone, always, whatever the views, and I'd always sort of love to give my perspective and how I see it and whatever. Always open for chat and conversation, shake hands, even just to chat about Arsenal, whatever. But also, I think it's just sort of one last thing is that these guys, that I work with, that I spend a lot of time with, they're massive Arsenal fans. Massive Arsenal fans. And I think sometimes that just gets forgotten a little bit. But look, I've been there nearly 2 years and I've loved it. It's been an amazing work environment. It's been amazing for me to, be talking about the club I love every day. I feel very lucky. I feel very privileged. And interesting when you guys were asking James Benge about how he does it as a journalist, being able to detach and do the. You know, I always find, and this is when I know I'm in a very lucky position. I found being at home watching a game, Arsenal lose 3-1 to Villa on the opening day of the season, and I just want to tear my hair out, and I'm just so frustrated. And AFTV, at least from my perspective, just for me personally, has allowed me a way to. It's almost been therapeutic. Like I can deal with it there and then I kind of leave it at the door. And it's hard. I'm still flicking through Twitter. I'm still everything, but it's allowed me to just sort of go, right, focus on the rest of life.
Well, and you know, the alternative to that is you take a video of yourself standing under a ceiling fan screaming at the top of your lungs, like that guy from Chelsea, who I absolutely love that guy. But James, we got to get your top 4, your bottom 3, and a surprise pick real quick, and then we're gonna blow Luke Kovac's mind. So who do you have winning the league?
I have City winning it, although they didn't look good. I've got to say, they didn't look good against Liverpool, but I think they'll get their act together. I then got Liverpool second, Spurs third, Arsenal fourth. I don't think there'll be a lot in it. But I actually think we're going to get to fourth, and I actually do believe that.
You just matched the other James B.
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
And your bottom 3?
I can't remember what he said, but I'm going Fulham, Bournemouth, Leeds.
Okay.
And then my surprise, is it a team to do really well or badly? Or
it's anything football related that would sound kind of like people have said, you know, Bergkamp to return home, Jesus to score more goals than Kane. Just anything that you think would not normally be odds on.
It's not. This really is not a hot take, but I think people are writing Leicester off. I think they'll be good again. I think they had a year of trying to balance European football. Yeah, people thought it'd gone stale for Rodgers, and I think
Somebody
it has.
said they were going to get relegated or something.
Yeah,
right,
someone
Mike?
had the opposite. Someone had the opposite take of that. Yeah. Relegation was. Who said that? Oh, Leicester will struggle. Kevin Campbell said Leicester will struggle.
There you go.
As his, you know, he knows a thing or two.
I mean, listen to the experts. I just have this feeling that I think they're going to do some bit. They've done no business. I think they'll do some business before the end of the season.
Someone did. Who was it that actually did say a manager would rip his shirt off during the? That was Jacob. Poorly drawn Arsenal.
Right.
That is awesome.
Will celebrate by taking his shirt off. So, James, hey man, I see our relationship from a podcasting perspective and from a communication standpoint taking off because I really, really enjoy your company.
Thank you.
I enjoy what you bring to the table. You're a credit to an organization that hopefully people will start to see for what it is, or just stop seeing and stop complaining about if they don't like it. But
it's been Mike. It's been absolutely. It's a pleasure meeting you out in Orlando, and it's been an absolute pleasure being on this show. And I just want to say a massive thank you for what you do. You know, Gooners v Cancer. It's a really sort of special thing, and this this stream and everything. When I think I was 10 or 11. My mother was diagnosed with cancer. She battled through and survived. But I remember those days. Even though I was 11, it kind of maybe 12. But anyway, it sticks with you. I think it's just an amazing cause, an amazing fight, and I've got so much love and time and respect for just this platform, what it's doing. So thank you for having me. It's a real honor.
I appreciate it, and stay tuned for some collaboration. There is going to be an announcement coming pretty soon, I think. I
look forward to that. I really look forward to
some fun ways to help the charity and get to know a little bit more about the good stuff going on at AFTV. Again, not trying to change minds, just open minds. That's all.
Hell, dude, just chatting with James changed my mind a little bit. It was absolutely.
That's why I was glad that you're on, because we've gone toe to toe on this subject, and all I want to try to do, Mikey, is open your mind to certain things.
Yeah, I'm still gonna butt your balls just for fun, but
okay,
you totally,
James, appreciate it, man.
A big thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest.